First of all, I'm extremely nervous. I'm going to tell you that right now. So I brought some notes because, when you go back through your life history, it gets a little foggy after about 20 years. So I have some notes to kind of follow along a little bit. So hopefully I won't get stuck reading them to you. When Dave asked me to do this a couple weeks ago, I asked him, what did he want me to speak about? He said, just get up there and tell about your life. It's not easy to talk about yourself. I do public speaking, so that's that I can handle, but talking about yourself is not easy to do. When I talked to Jessica, I said, what should I talk about? And she said, well, you're one of the leaders in the industry. Just talk about what you've done. I know the people before me that have done this, Randy Sebastian, Wally Remmers, those are guys that I look up to. I certainly don't put myself in the same caliber as them. But when I was putting this together, I thought, if I can come up with something that can save somebody some heartache or inspire somebody along the way, then it might be beneficial to somebody. So I was born in 1970. My father was a mechanic. I knew nothing about construction. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, so I was in a very conservative family growing up. In the summer of 1986, I was about 15 years old. I got a call from a family friend asking if he wanted me to work over the summer doing construction. So I took the job over that summer. I worked for Scott Miller of the Golden Hammer. For those of you who know Scott, he's been in the industry for years, high-end remodeling contractor. And that summer, he really taught me construction from the inside out. We did a large remodel addition on a house, broke it down, and I spent the summer doing a lot of labor. But it really taught me the fundamentals of construction from the inside. So the following summer, he asked me to come back to work for him. And by this time, it was 1987, and market wasn't as strong anymore. So he was kind of feeding his family and working with some other people by doing some framing. And he went with his old partner, who was Lon Ingalls. And him and Lon were framing houses together. And Lon's been around for a long time. I don't know if anybody knows Lon, but he's your atypical framer. He's got arms the size of my legs, and he does everything by himself. So that was how I got my start into framing, learning from him. So by the end of that summer, when I was going to my senior year of high school, I was sure that I wanted to be a framing contractor. I had enough credits to graduate, so I opted that year to go to school half-time. So my senior year in high school, I went to school till noon and then broke out of there and went to the job sites and framed in the afternoons. By the time I graduated, I was sure this is what I wanted to be. Didn't want to go to college. I wanted to be a home builder. So by the winter of 1989, I got my CCB license. I still lived at home. My mom and dad had to co-sign for me on my bond, and I was going to go out and be a framing contractor. What I didn't know was I was only 18 years old and there wasn't a builder in town that would hire me. So finally, I got somebody who took a chance on me, Gabe Sugarman. He let me frame one of his houses out in Beaverton, and I got $1.25 a square foot. I remember it like it was yesterday. And after that, I started framing houses. So I continued to work for Scott over the years, doing remodel work as a carpenter. I also framed in various job sites, and finally developed a reputation as somebody who could build high-end custom homes with cut roofs. So I found my way up into Forest Heights in about 1990. And once I got up to the Forest Heights, I stayed there for about the next 2 to 3 years framing high-end custom homes. In 1994, I went to work for Dan Anderson Homes. I started framing houses for him in tract housing and spent the next 2 years framing heavy production housing in his subdivisions. In late 1996, Dan actually came to me and asked me to build his personal home off Brugger Road, frame it. So I framed his personal home for him throughout that summer, and by the winter of 1996, he came to me and asked me if I wanted a job as a superintendent. So I went to work for Dan Anderson Homes as a superintendent. I worked under Keith Jasmine. He was a construction manager at the time. So I worked for him throughout 97, 98, 99. This is when Dan started doing the narrow lot line houses, is when everybody started doing them back then. And we built a lot of houses in the Beaverton area. We built about 250 homes in that time. So in 1998 rolled around, and I got my first divorce. I tell you this because this is probably one of the lowest points in my life. I was divorced, working as a superintendent, didn't have a lot of money, and I didn't have a place to live. John Lamont, who owns Max Deli down the street, actually had a fixer-upper house that he let me live in. There's no carpet on the floor, and it was in pretty bad disrepair. But I lived there for about 6 months while I was trying to get back on my feet. Finally, Dan took mercy on me, and he actually let me buy one of his houses on contract. And so I got into one of his houses over there in Beaverton at the village of Sutherland Meadows. So for the next few years, things were looking better. Dan actually promoted me to his construction manager, and I took over the operations. And in that area on 206 and Baseline, we built about 260 homes in that area. So by the winter of 2000, I was feeling pretty good about what I was doing, and I was pretty sure I needed a raise. In fact, I was so sure it was going to be a deal breaker for me. And I went in and talked to our controller at the time and said, I think I'm going to quit because I think I need a raise and I'm doing a lot for Dan. And she said, you know, just be patient. What I didn't know was Dan was getting ready to retire. So in January 2001, Dan called me into his office and he said, I'm going to retire and I'm going to sell you 12 of my lots and I'm going to co-sign for you for your first construction loans. So in 2001, I had my own company, I was building houses, and I actually had some construction loans. So everything that Dan taught me about production housing and production building and estimating, he didn't taught me anything about cash management. So all the money that I made, because I was making more money than I'd ever had before, went as fast as it came. So that could have been my start getting into the building industry, but unfortunately I burnt through all the capital that I made. So late in 2002, 2003, about 2002, I had to hustle to try and get work. I'd had 2 back surgeries at the time, so I couldn't do framing anymore. So I started working for other investors as a fee builder. So instead of taking me on as an employee, they took me on as a house by house that I'd build houses for them. Probably most notably was Steve and Dick Brown. So working with Steve and Dick Brown, you guys know them, very nice homes, good eye for detail. And the other thing that they gave me was the opportunity to build a house in the Street of New Beginnings. And that was probably my first start at doing that really got my interest on doing the show houses. While I was working for Steve, I actually was contracting out with other investors at the time. I built 33 row houses out in the Portland area for a private party. The market was good, so that went well. We sold those houses fairly fast. And we sold them so good that he decided that we wanted to do it again. And at that time, he thought it would be better if we started a new company. Of course, that company was Sequoia Custom Homes. So I went to work with Sequoia Custom Homes and thought that this would be the, where I was going to head, and I found myself a home, to the point where I actually let my license lapse for the first time in 17 years. So I dropped my CCB license. Once again, though, I found myself going through another divorce, working for somebody, and I didn't have a license. But things got better. 2004, Sequoia had an entry in the Street of New Beginnings, and I did that show house. Fire and Ice actually did pretty well out there at Cornelius Pass. And over the next 2 years, Sequoia developed about 200 lots, and we sold about 300 homes. Probably one of the highlights of my career was in 2005. We did an entry in the Street of New Beginnings called The Celebration. And that was a house that I designed that had a outdoor patio that was on the second floor inside the house, and it won Best in Show. So by 2006, the market had heated up, and Sequoia was actually on the path to be one of the largest builders in Oregon. Once again, we entered the Street of New Beginnings in 2006 and had 2 entries. One of the houses was sold at auction. The other house was one of our entries. At this point, I thought, everything was going great. I was running a company that was positioned to be one of the largest builders in Oregon. I actually had, Beverly was in my life. I had actually met Beverly. So we actually had a great relationship, and things were going good. And the day after the grand opening of the Street of New Beginnings, I was actually let go from Sequoia Custom Homes. At the time, this was probably one of the worst parts of my life. It was embarrassing. I didn't know why. And for me, being in the industry for so long, the temptation was just kind of fold up and kind of close my doors. But I made the decision to kind of put one foot in front of the other, and actually kept myself active in the community. I did performance for investors. I worked with other builders, trying to work through their cost analysis, and just kept myself active in the community. So by the time that I let my license lapse, I knew I had to get back in. So I kept in touch with my controller at Sequoia, and I tell you that because he wasn't the greatest at construction accounting, but he actually taught an accounting 101 at one of the colleges. So every afternoon when I was in there, he would talk to me about debits and credits and profit and loss, and actually explain everything to me. I didn't know at the time, but that was probably one of the best lessons I ever had, and I still use it to this day. So by August of 2006, I decided that we need to start a new company. But one of the last calls that I got at Sequoia was from a guy named Tim Mosterdijk. Tim Mosterdijk was the director of education at a startup college called the Northwest College of Construction. Dave Nielsen had recommended me to be an instructor over there, so I interviewed with him, and I wasn't sure it would go anywhere. But by that fall, they'd actually put me on the curriculum to teach 4 classes that year. So by August 2006, I decided it was time to get my license again. So I went out and started that process. And for those of you who started a company, it sounds easy, but one of the hardest things is naming your company. My wife Beverly, when she was doing some research, she came across the name Taliesin, which is a Welsh word. And I thought, what a perfect fit. My first two initials are T and A. My last name's spelled Liesy. So I thought it was a perfect fit for my company. So we formed Taliesin Homes in August of 2006. A year later, I sent a cease and desist order from Frank Lloyd Wright. So instead of unforming the company, we DBA'd to TA Liesy Homes, and that's how we got TA Liesy Homes. So now as a licensed contractor again, early or late 2006, the market was hot. I figured I can get my start again. So I started calling all my old bank relations that I had at Sequoia. Figured I'd get a couple construction loans. The reality check for that was most of the phone calls were Tom who. They didn't remember who I was. Of course they did, but I didn't have a track record anymore. I was a new company, no financials, no capital. So here I was, once again, licensed, unemployed, and didn't have a start in the industry. So finally, in late 2006, a bank took mercy on me and gave me one construction loan. So I got a construction loan from Frontier Bank. So I made the best of it. We built one house, sold it quickly, and after that, I now had a little bit of a track record. I had two other banks that actually gave me loans, but at this time, now we're in early 2007, lots were hard to come by. They were hard to come by, and they're extremely expensive. I found 4 lots to buy out in Timberline Trails out in Sandy, so I was able to start 4 new constructions out there, and I was worried about the market, so I decided to frame 2 of those houses myself, just to stay active. Unfortunately, out of those 4 houses, I only sold 1. So I was stuck with 3 houses, and I still have them to this day. I was able to put permanent financing on them and actually get out of those construction loans. So once I was able to do that, I was open for more construction loans. So at the time, that developer came to me and asked me if I wanted to buy the balance of that subdivision. And there was 33 lots left in there. There's no way I had the finances to do that, so he came to me and said, if I can arrange the financing for you, would you buy these 33 lots? So of course I agreed, and that was my start into hard money. So I'd never borrowed hard money before, so my rates on that hard money were 6 and 15, which coming from construction loans, that seemed astronomical. The challenge that I had was I thought I had plenty of room to play with. The lots I had bought previously, those 4 lots, I paid 105. These ones I was paying 70. So I thought I was going to make a ton of money on those. So once again, in my inexperience, what I didn't do was factor the cost of money and the burn rate in there. What I did do, though, in 2007 is we were able to sell 13 homes. 2008 rolled around, and my construction lender started calling me saying they might not be able to fund my next loans. I didn't get overly worried about it because I figured it was just a one-off deal. But by March of 2008, all 3 of my construction lenders had cease and desist orders, so no more construction loans. Unfortunately for me, I had 3 pre-sales in contract, but I had a lender, a local lender, who was sure he could get them done. So I put the bank packages together, got them over to loan approval, and he called me and said they're approved. So in April of 2008, because I owned the lots, I went ahead and bought the building permits, started the houses, and started production. This is about the 15th of the month. So by the end of the month, I hadn't got my loan documents yet. So now I got bills coming in. So I start calling him, and he says, just another day, just another day. So the 10th rolls around, and I still don't have loans yet. So I pay the bills myself. I completely exhausted all the construction money that I had, hoping that the construction loans would fund in time to give me my money back. So we kept building the houses, and by the end of that month, now he wasn't even calling me back. So I went out and camped out at his office until he finally talked to me, and he came out and said, your loans aren't approved. We can't give you construction loans. So here I have 3 houses in production. Now they're in sheetrock, and I figured this is it. I'm going out of business. I've got all my money into these houses, and I don't have construction loans. So I called my construction manager at the time, and I said, we don't have loans. We're going out of business. And he said, well, they're pre-sales, right? And I said, yeah. You got the loan approvals on them, right? I said, yeah. Let's finish them. So we did. We pushed as hard as we could, finished those houses the next couple weeks, took the proceeds off those sales, paid the bills on the houses. From that point on, we now at least had a way to build pre-sales. I didn't have enough money to build 3 or 4 at a time. At the time, I only had enough to build 1, but we started another pre-sale, and we did it the same way. We built it as fast as we could, took the proceeds and paid the bills, and then we started another one. The only problem was at the time, again, that hard money burn rate was catching up with me. So lots that I had bought at $70,000, Because I didn't factor in the burn rate on the money, they were now the debt on those lots was now over 100. Unfortunately, now we're into late 2008, and those lots were worth 70. So I had about 7 lots left, and there was no way I was going to give up. So what we did was we ended up building those houses for free just to pay that guy back. So one of the things that we've done over the years, though, to mitigate that risk on our pre-sales is on our homes, is we only build pre-sales. I haven't built a spec in the last 6 years. It's only been a pre-sale. We require hard earnest money that gets released to the seller to make sure they're in the deal. And probably the most important thing is we ask for full loan approval. So Beverly, my wife, is a loan officer, so we require that she reviews all the financial documents. We want to make sure that not only do they have an automated approval, but the financial documents have been approved. So out of the last 350 homes that we've built, we've only had 1 sale fail. And fortunately for us, it was able to sell the next day. It doesn't say we don't have loan problems, though. Most recently, we just had one that Beverly wasn't able to do, and we had a loan officer assure us that the loan was approved, and 3 days before closing, they actually got a denial. So this just happened 3 weeks ago, and fortunately for me, Beverly was able to take that loan over and close it in 8 days. So one of the challenges we still have is with our lending, so we have to be very cautious of that. So back to Timberline Trails. So after I built my way out of there, and I paid that hard money lender off, he now was actually up for loaning more money. So over the next few years, I bought some spot lots, bought a few subdivisions, and did a lot of one-offs. And by the end of 2009, I'd closed 22 homes. So by 2010, we're working for various investors on projects, still doing fee building, still doing some of our own building on our own lots, still working without construction loans. We were struggling, but in 2010, I had an opportunity to buy some distressed lots from Sterling Savings. So at the time, if you remember, in 2010, the market was not hot, but the numbers were so good on the lots that I couldn't pass it up. So I bought 74 lots from Sterling Savings in late 2010, early 2011. This is where the hard money gets really hard. I paid 10 points and 25% interest for that money. But at the time, I could factor that in. I could make that work. And the lesson I learned in Timberline Trails was I now worked on accelerated debt payoff. I didn't focus on my profit. I focused on debt retirement. So I was actually able to retire that debt in less than a year and was left over with about 40 lots free and clear because I pushed the debt retirement. So from that point forward, I've been able to actually acquire other subdivisions. It's worked in my favor of retiring debt because I can use the equity on our subdivisions to buy new ones. Our hard money guys obviously have been well taken care of over the years, so they're the first ones to jump when we have a new subdivision to buy. So in 2012, we finished off closing only 64 homes, but we grossed over $20 million doing that. In early 2012, I was approached by an investor who had an apartment complex, wanted me to build it. I didn't want to bog the company down any further than I had already, so we actually formed a new company, which is TA Liesy Construction. And because of my experience in teaching commercial management, I actually had a good in for dealing with the commercial side of things. But you know, the one thing about this is throughout the whole path of this, I still work hard, just as hard as I was when I was a framer packing wood. I equate everything to framing. I equate how we build our houses and the meticulous care we take in doing that. I still do all the accounting for our company, and I still meet with every buyer prior to building a house for them. So I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope this inspires you or maybe scares you from not doing the things that I've done. I am concerned about the market moving forward. I'm concerned about the bubble that we're currently in. I think our bubble currently is the interest rate that we have, that we're selling money right now, and we have buyers with tremendous buying power. So that's the only thing that concerns me moving forward. Thank you.
Tom, thanks for sharing that. That's some great stuff there, you know, to hear your story. How about one or two or three questions for Tom?
Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, most home builders out there look at me as the kind of guy who undercuts the market. We don't do it on purpose, but obviously we've been able to sell our houses cheaper than everybody else or more inexpensive. One of the reasons why I do that, I made that decision a long time ago. If I have a spec home that I want to make 20, 30%, whatever it is I want to make on it, if that house sat for a while, I'd take anything I can get. So the way I looked at our pre-sales was I could afford to take less money on a pre-sale because my risk is mitigated. So that gave me the ability to come in lower than everybody else. I'd bought lots at distressed value, so we kind of pushed us through that market. We've closed 52 homes already. So we're on track to do over 100 with no construction loans. The only concern that I have is, when you use the term, we're selling money, I mean, what it really comes down to it, you have buyers that have tremendous buying power. The concern that I have is the product we're putting forward. If we start moving up, if land prices of, the cardinal rule of a home builder is don't let your land prices dictate your home prices, but unfortunately that's already started to happen. So once that happens, I don't think we have the income and jobs to match. So if we see that marketing or that interest rate increase, I think we got to be really careful of that. I don't. I kind of made the decision to, try and build as inexpensive as I can. It's not to say that I don't believe in it. It's just always been our, methodology to build inexpensive.